Welcome to day 12 of my 30-day engagement. My name is Sean Aaron, he, him, his. I am the founder and executive director of Dem Boys Inc. I am also the host of Dem Boys Podcast. So if you are just tuning in today on day 12, be sure to go back and listen to all my other days, and days 1 through 11, so that you can get the full taste of what this 30-day engagement is about. And so this 30-day engagement is also about Black trans visibility and just sharing some questions that I've had and held on to for a while now. And so some of these questions are questions that I've came up with, and then also some of these questions are questions that folks have asked me. And so they lived in a place where nobody was looking at them and nobody was answering. And so that inspired this 30-day engagement so that I can just get it all out, right? Get all of the questions out. And so today's question is, what does joy look like for me? And so before I answer that, I kind of want to plug in an episode from Them Boys Podcast. And so from a couple of episodes ago, if we are listening, watching this current, right? Them Boys Podcast, season 3, episode 79 with EC Pizarro III. And the title of this episode was, What Does Joy Look Like for You? And so within this episode, me and EC, like, we really, you can just hear a lot of Black trans joy within this episode. We did a lot of laughing. We did a lot of connecting, and it was just a really, really great episode. And so, if you know EC and the work that he does, great. If you don't know about EC, you can learn about EC. Be sure to check out episode 79 of Them Boys Podcast. And then within that episode, in the description of the episode, you can click on the links of like how to connect with EC, follow on his website, the work that he's doing within the community, all of that stuff, right? So within this episode, we talked about joy. And one of the things that I like to do within the episode, each episode is I have a list of random ass questions that are forever changing, and I'm always adding questions to the list. And so the list of questions is always growing. And so what I do is I ask the guests to pick a random question and then answer that question. And it may or may not have anything to do with what we talked about on the show during that time, but it's just a question so that folks can kind of get to see or hear some other things from the guests that they didn't say on the show, right? It could be anything, something random like what's your favorite color or what's your favorite ice cream or whatever. It's just a question, right? And so what I did this season was I told guests to take one and leave one. So they answered one question, but then they left a question on my list for future guests to answer. And so this episode really brought me joy. And so I wanted you to just listen really quick to some audio from this episode and reflecting on the question that EC left behind. So check it out. For sure. All right. So you answered that one question. Please leave one for future guests to answer.
What does joy feel and taste like? Or any sense for that matter. So like feel, taste, sound, any of the five senses.
Mm.
Like for me, joy sounds like Carl Thomas Summer Rain.
That's your age. We telling our age. The younger folks listening gonna be like, "Who the hell is Carl Thomas?" I hear that song in my head. I wish I could sing because I would sing it. Oh yeah,
Summer rain.
there you go. Hey,
Kisses me to sleep and wakes me up again.
yes, that's
Listen.
it. That's it. Yeah. Yeah, so even just listening to that episode right now, I'm like, just that little snippet, I'm like, I remember just how much joy talking to EC brought me and just how much laughter we did within the episode. And so if you haven't had the opportunity to check out Them Boys Podcast, please do so. If you haven't had the chance to listen to episode 53, do that also. I'll be sure to put the link down below. And so to answer today's question, what does joy look like for me? I'm a simple guy. Okay. And so I'm very simple. So there's not too many things. I don't have like this long list of things. So I wrote down some things because I was like, I don't want to miss stuff. But like what I had to really think deep of like, what brings me joy? What do I like to do? And so, reflecting on this episode in particular, one of the things that I like to do is to laugh. And I mentioned that previously on another day of one of the things that I love. I love, love, love to laugh. And so, being able to be in a space and being able to laugh a lot with a guest, like that really brought me a lot of joy. And so, even just listening to it now, just reflecting back, I'm like, oh, that made me so happy. But I wrote a few things down. And so, cooking for myself brings me a lot of joy. I love to cook, right? And so folks think black men can't cook or men in general cannot cook. That is not the case for me. I know how to cook, ma'am or sir. So I am very, I know how to cook for myself. And this is one of the things which is really bizarre because when I was younger, I want to go back. I did say ma'am and sir, but that's because if someone asks me in their pronouns or they want to be referred to as ma'am or sir. And so I'm speaking to those. But anybody who's asking me, I will let's say, hey, I know how to cook. And so what's really bizarre is when I was a kid, being socialized as a female woman, whatever you want to say, my mom and previous day I talked about my mom was very religious, and so my mom put me in a etiquette class at church. And so the idea was to learn how to cook for your husband one day. I know weird things that happen in church. That should be another conversation. Like, what are weird things that happen in church? What are they? What are we teaching the children in church? Jeez. So I would go to this etiquette class and how to please your husband, how to clean the house. It was like all of these different things, right? Anyway, I was when I was in that class, and at that particular time, I knew I was a queer person and I was like, I want a woman to cook for me. That's what I was thinking, right? But I will say that my mom, out of all the things that she's done, one of the great things that she's done is she taught me how to cook. Her and my grandmother taught me how to cook. And my mother, it wasn't a gendered thing when it came to cooking because my mother also taught my brothers as well. So my brothers also know how to cook too. But it was like you need to learn how to make some stuff so you don't have to be dependent on anybody. And I don't know if that was like the single mother in her of like be independent because you may be by yourself one day type of thing. But she was just like learn how to cook because you don't want to have to depend on anybody. So cooking for myself brings me joy. I rarely eat out. I mean, unless I'm going out with loved ones or chosen family. But I just feel like sometimes when I go to restaurants or whatever, I'm disappointed. I'm like, I could have made this shit at home. So I'm weird in that way. So I cook my own food, breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever the case may be, right? And then I pack my own lunch when I go to my 9 to 5. And so and it brings me joy also to know that I know what I'm putting in my body because I'm the one that prepared it. And so that brings me joy. So reading a good book brings me joy. I love to read. I'm a learner. I'm a lifelong learner. I love to read. My favorite are how to for dummies. I love reading those books about how to do stuff, just random stuff, right? I've even read a how to fish for dummies. Like I'm always I'm always wanting to learn. I never used it by the way. I still don't know how to fish, but it was a good book. But I love to read like how to do stuff, like how to build a shelf. I don't know. I just randomly like to. I'm also one of the type of people that when you buy products, and I don't even think this even exists anymore, really. They don't really have this unless it's something you actually got to build. But a how to, they used to have it, when you buy something, even with your phone, you used to buy it and then you get a little instruction booklet and they tell you how to use it and all the functions. Now that's non existent, right? Because we have platforms like this, like YouTube, and people giving instructional videos how to do this, and that. And then I think that nowadays, to me, I feel products are more simple. You don't got all them buttons. You don't have all that stuff that you need to navigate, right? So, but I still love to read. I love to read all kind of books. I love to read things about history, Black history. I love to read. When I was a kid, I also used to read cookbooks because my mom did teach me how to cook. So I would spend a lot of time in a library and I would check out cookbooks and I would get these little index cards and I would write the recipes down. And then my mom was supportive in that way because then she would go buy the ingredients and then let me cook it. So I would cook dinner sometimes. I don't know if she was just being lazy and she was like, I'm gonna let my kid cook dinner. I don't know. But either way, I got some experience in that way of like learning how to cook. And so then my other thing that brings me joy is I'm currently learning how to play the bass guitar. And so I would like to say that I'm a bassist. I'm getting better. I'm not perfect, but that brings me so much joy. I've always wanted to learn ever since I was a kid, but then I'm like, okay, I'm in my 40s, so what's stopping me? Just go buy a bass and learn, right? So learning how to play the bass is bringing me so much joy. Like I have this vision of being this old man, old black man in I don't know, in some jazz club with other old black men and we playing together. I don't know why. And also internally I feel like in another life, in a past life, like I was a jazz musician. I don't know where that come from. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I don't know, but I have like this inkling for music. Like I talked about in previous days of how much I love music and how music has been my refuge in some ways. And so I don't know if that's the connection I feel or if it really was like, yo, in my past life I was some jazz musician. I don't know, but that is something that brings me joy. Oh, one thing that's really sweet is hearing my granddaughter call me Papa. It brings me so much joy. She's currently 2 years old. And I mentioned this before in previous days that I have a son. My son currently is 28. To this day, he's 28. Um, and to hear her call me Papa means so much because if anybody knows, I'm my grandparents, both of my grandparents' favorite grandchild. They've both told me personally, so I am. That brings me joy too, by the way, knowing that I'm my grandparents' favorite grandchild. But before my grandfather passed, he told me that I was his favorite grandchild. So he not here to contest that. So that's my story and I'm sticking to it. But he meant something very special to me. And I also think that he meant something more special to me more so than my other cousins because he spent more time with me and especially towards the end of his life. My grandfather, I spent some time with him. I got to interview him, not like interview, but like ask him some questions I wanted to ask him about his life, about his past, about his migration from the South to California, about him being a Mason, like all these things that I got to get from him. And Papa, 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 Papa. Like I always, that was like my thing to call my Papa all the time, even when I was younger. And so to hold on to that memory and into that name means something to me. So I always said, oh, when I have a grandchild, I want my child to call me Papa. And not only that I'm holding on to a name that I called my grandfather and my grandchild is called to me, but it's also affirming to know that I am somebody's father. I am somebody's papa. Like it's so affirming to hear that, right? And so that brings me so much joy when she's just like Papa up. She want me to pick her up. So it that brings me just an overwhelming amount of joy, right? And so the other thing I wrote down was caring for my loved ones. That bring me so much joy. There was a time, and I'm the type of person. My love language to give is gifts, and so I used to always think that was a problem. I always thought that like I was fulfilling like this gender binary thing of like wanting to take care of my family and pay the bills and support and I'm the one to do all those things. And I started to feel like, oh, I'm it's so gender binary, right? And then I remember unpacking that in therapy and realizing what my love language was. And I was doing these things because that's the way that I show love. So that's my own personal journey. I'm not expecting anybody else to resonate with that. But for me, I worked through that. And now I know that to do things for my chosen family and my loved ones in a way that brings me joy. So to know, like, for instance, if I say, hey, y'all, let's all go out to dinner, right? And so it's a group of us, my family, my son, my granddaughter, just my chosen family, right? Maybe it's 5 or 6 of us. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to pay for dinner, right? Like that brings me joy to do those things, right? And so I've had to learn and to grow in a way mentally about like, yo, that's okay to be like that. That's your love language. And it's okay. And so now that I've come to accept that a little bit more, it brings me even more joy. And so The last thing I put on my list, and this was just like the random thing I put on my list, but like one thing that brings me joy is smoking a cigar. And the only reason why I'm thought of that before recording this video is because I saw somebody actively smoking a cigar, and I was like, oh, that brings me joy when I do that too. It's just and I, like I said, I'm a simple guy, right? Cooking for myself, laughing, reading a book, learning how to play the bass. My granddaughter, like caring for loved ones, like those, you think of those are being like, oh, that's just something really, really simple. But those are things that really, really bring me joy. And I can list maybe 20 more things that I've learned that bring me joy, like hiking or music or like a lot of different things, right? But what brings you joy? So I've said and listed the things that brings me joy. So I want to know, what brings you joy? What does joy look like for you? And so if you haven't had the opportunity, please go and listen to episode 79. And so in the episode, we talk a lot about happiness, about joy, about some of the things that bring us joy. And we just laugh a lot, right? And so down in the comments below, let me know, what brings you joy? What makes you smile? What makes you laugh? What makes you feel whole? So, once again, my name is Sean Aaron, he, him, his, and this is day 12 of my 30-day reflection series. So, please come back tomorrow and join me for the next day.